It's been about 24 hours since the Kyrie to Dallas trade, and there have been all types of reports online about the move and how it went down. So let's bring in SNY NBA insider Ian Begley to break it down, because Ian, never a dull day in Brooklyn. But let's get into some of these reports. The reports are there are other teams in the mix for Kyrie. Who are those other squads?
Yeah, well, in addition to the Mavericks, you had the Lakers who were right there, the Phoenix Suns who were right there. Other teams, I think, had degrees of interest, but not as strong as those two. And, Saturday night before this thing went down, some teams that had interest in Irving felt that the Lakers had the only legit offer on the table. So it really picked up on Sunday, and Dallas swooped in and got a deal done. But the Lakers were right there. And I think Phoenix especially was right there at the end of this thing, but ultimately Sean Marks, Joe Tsai decide to bring back Dorian Finney-Smith and Spencer Dinwiddie, and we'll see what happens between now and Thursday afternoon's trade deadline.
Well, I'm glad you brought up that strong offer by the Lakers, because there are reports about Joe Tsai refusing to trade Kyrie to L.A. What do you know about that?
Well, look, I think the Nets would say we did the best deal that was out there for us, but I know that there was not a lot of love lost between Joe Tsai and Kyrie Irving. There was a lot of frustration, I think, from both sides. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if Joe Tsai said, hey, if we can get a deal that's near the Lakers package, let's do it. But again, I think, let's do the other deal. But I think that what the Nets would say is, hey, we wanted players like Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith back because we wanted to try to win games this year.
Well, I know how the fans feel about it. My Twitter blew up. But, do you think this trade package with the Nets was fair?
Yeah, I think it was a pretty good package if the Nets are, again, serious about trying to continue to win games this year. And I think they are, no matter what happens between now and Thursday afternoon. I think the idea is to try to win. Obviously, that all changes if Kevin Durant comes and says to you, hey, I want to be moved and I want to be moved now. Then all bets are off. But assuming that you're trying to prove to Kevin Durant that you're still trying to win, this was a good deal because Dorian Finney-Smith, Spencer Dinwiddie, you can put them on the court and they can help you right away.
So if KD doesn't go to them and say he wants to be moved, do you think that the Nets are going to hold on and retain these two assets, or do you think they're going to try and use what they accumulated to make a move for another star?
Yeah, Brandon, we noted that the Nets had been in touch with Toronto during the process of their Kyrie Irving trade talk. So that tells me that, they will be active here and trying to get something else done, because that was on a subsequent trade. So it's OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam. I know before Kyrie's trade demand, they had continued to be in touch with the Hawks and John Collins. So, yeah, I would assume they'd be very active here and continuing to try to upgrade the roster. And if that means putting Spencer Dinwiddie in a trade, putting Dorian Finney-Smith in a trade, I don't think they would hesitate to do so.
Now how about the other option? If KD does go to the front office and say, I do want to be moved, do you think that they'd move him and just blow it all up and start over?
I would think so, because you do not want a scenario where, the trade demand is put in place and then 3 days later you're asking everybody to hug and make up and play out the rest of the season. So I think if Durant comes to them and said, hey, my trade request is back on the table, I think they would try to get something done by the deadline. Now, maybe Durant and the Nets work together and say, hey, we know you want to be moved. It'll be easier to do it in the offseason. But if he issues that ultimatum, I would assume the Nets try very hard to get something done by Thursday to avoid what would be just a mess having Durant here after the trade deadline, after reinstating that trade request.
Well, I'm glad you summed it up. A mess. That's exactly what it is. Never a dull day in Brooklyn. Ian Begley, thanks for joining us.